Hi, Shan. Hi, Ryan.
Hello, Melissa.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. So today we're going to be talking about numbers, specifically 1 to 10, maybe with a little emphasis on 7 and 8, uh, 7 plus 1, and maybe in relation to symbolism, tarot cards, creation myths, and other things. So, Shan, you had something that you wanted to share about the numbers 7 and 8 to begin with, I think.
Yeah, so you guys both have done some really great presentations recently, and I thought it'd be fun if we revisit some of the things that were mentioned in your chat with Brian on your channel, and then you were recently on the Amish Inquisition, and also I got so excited when you mentioned the 7+1. I was like, yes, I just want to talk more and like pick your brains more because you're so smart, and I'm just happy to be here.
It's different kinds of smarts.
So
That's what it is. We're all equally stupid as well. That's the problem.
we
It's
are
it's the other
all
half of the
really
equation.
stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're just humans solving the mysteries of our lifetimes. So it's fun that we can get together and have like casual conversations about it. And maybe it can activate things in you, the viewers who are watching us. You might be able to pull little nutrients from the information that we talk about that could connect your own dots or help you take your understandings to another place that maybe you hadn't thought of before. So,
Yeah, do. And if anyone has any comments, leave them underneath.
yes, please. We all look at those. So, let's see. How do I want to start this off? Rather than kind of like off the bat defining the 7+1, I guess I'll reference just more of what Plato says in Timaeus, and then Melissa, you're more familiar than I am, so you can probably fill in the gaps here. But the in this concept, because it's something that you see repeated throughout time in different cultures and places, and we'll probably get into discussing some of that so you can see how common it is. And the way that I view it is more from like a philosophical perspective and how we can relate our human experience to these numbers. And like Ryan will say, it's very Pythagorean. It's very like Plato and Gurdjieff and the Kabbalah and the Tarot, all of this. We use this 1 through 10 system, but we're kind of focusing on 1 through 7. Like, even there was that video that you shared recently that was so amazing for a number of reasons. The man from the Navajo tribe who was discussing the 7 colors of the rainbow and how they are different kind of like aspects of what they call the beauty way, and that they have an 8th color that you learn about that is basically pure crystal light. And so then when we're looking at Plato's Timaeus, it's something more like you've got the 7 heavenly bodies and they represent, like non-fixed energies and time structures and things like that. And then the 8th sphere or the 8th element to that is more like the stars. But when you look at it from more of a philosophical perspective, it's like you've got the moving parts, and then you have almost like this other dimension. Like that 8th aspect is almost like another how would you say?
Realm.
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
realm.
Yeah.
So do you both see 7 like as a complete system in itself, or
Mm.
how do you see this concept? Like, is it leading into the 8th state? Is the 8th state maybe separate from this?
So, from a historical point of view, that the eighth was sometimes here, and it was sometimes at the other side of that 7. It just depended on who was talking about it. So we're talking about it being on the other side. So yeah, they saw it as the firmament, like the crystalline sphere. See, the ancients thought the sky was rock. You know, I spoke to Melissa about it before. They thought it was stone, it was crystal, and you knew that because you could see light coming through from the other side in the stars, and you could sometimes feel the impact of rocks on your buildings from, you know, meteors and such. But yeah, it's essentially like that Platonic realm, pretty much, where all the rules and information is stored and where the forms start to come into existence and things like that. So it is like the archetypal realm, really, the place where the code is stored, sort of thing. And they often call it astral light. Does that conform to what you're thinking?
That's beautiful. Yeah. What do you think, Melissa?
Yeah. So I think that Plato's story of creation must be just his take or his meditation on a very old story that actually isn't just Greek, but it's almost universal, if you can talk about universal in that time, because it's very similar to a lot of the things that you find in the ancient Indian texts and other traditions, like, for example, the Navajo and the First Nations of what's now the States. So I love that video because about the rainbow, the Navajo conception of the 7 colors, and then the 8th, but partly because it resonated then with this idea of the creation, you know, and the planet. So you have what Plato says is, in fact, that the demiurge, the creator, first of all divided things into 2. And so that dualism that you find in so many traditions, and I was kind of thinking about it today in terms of Tao, you know, the dualisms, but we were talking about that recently. And then on the one side, he actually then subdivides that that circle into 7. So they're the 7 planets. So that's definitely they're in a group. And then to the other side, you've got that 7 plus 1. And that would be the background stars or the crystal light or something. So that's interesting. And that also then reminded me of, you know, the constellation of Fucus, who could be together with Orion, the guardian of the souls going to the afterlife and coming back in onto this planet, but also the leader of the 12, you know, the 12 signs of the zodiac, maybe kind of an aspect of Orion or vice versa. And then he or she of Fucus is standing on Scorpio, and often Scorpius has 7 heads. And then maybe that could also be interesting because it depends how you draw it. But in some versions, the scorpion or the dragon or the devil beneath St. Michael in particular has these 7 heads. So it's kind of the same. You have this very dualistic conception, and you have the St. Michael or whoever, Justice from the tarot cards, being a sort of a symbol of balance, maybe between light and darkness, or good and evil, or whatever. And then, so you have that dualism, just like in Plato's narrative of the creation. And then you have that one down below that's subdivided into 7. So again, it could be the same thing as like 7 plus 1. So I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I see it as it's 3 sets of dualities. It's a trinity of dualities plus 1, which gets that mercurial. Fun. Yeah. So it's a lower set of these higher things. And I will point out that you said it's like a 7 plus 1. Sometimes it's plus 2. Sometimes it's even plus 3, because you need to get to 10, you see. I see Shan smiling. She's going to get here, I know it. But okay, I'll avoid that. However, I want to say that you can see it in that what you're getting at, Melissa. This cosmology does seem to be so ancient. It's like the original religion, isn't it? Essentially, it's so widespread, and it's there from the beginning, seemingly. So the constellation Taurus with the Pleiades in the neck is 7 stars plus 1 stroke 2. It's the same said about the plough in Taoism and in ancient Britain and in the West. It was that there were 7 stars and 1 that you can't see in the plough. So there's always this hidden one. And this is why I think it's called the occult. It's called the mysteries, because it's the hidden thing that you can't see. The 8th sphere.
So that it's not just that the whole system is a little bit tricky, then you have to meditate on it. It's that there's some element that's actually hidden or invisible, like that eighth light, that eighth color of the rainbow. And it's interesting then, if you think back to Plato, then Plato talks about those initial two circles. It's the circle of the same and the circle of the different. And the circle of the different that's then subdivided into this, the 7 planets, including the sun and the moon, is the one that's it's different from something that's more primordial. And then the one that doesn't change, that goes in the other direction, the one that's the background stars or precession, whatever, it's the circle of the same. You kind of have to wonder the same as what? Maybe something that's maybe more fundamental.
Well, those 12 archetypes are the fundamentals. Really, the things that make the formula that makes up those 12 are the fundamentals is numbers. Again, it's the first 4 numbers through the first 4 elements, and a slightly different variation of that through cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And you'll notice as well, there's a dualizing as well that people don't quite get. There's kind of an androgyny twinny factor, which is those first 3 signs of the zodiac are the archetypal archetypes. So it's like you've got the archetypal fire there in Aries, you've got the archetypal earth in Taurus, the archetypal air in Gemini. And you notice that fire is kind of a cardinal, get the thing going in the first place. Well, that's Aries, that's cardinal fire. Fixed earth is fixed earth. And then you got Gemini, which is a mutable air. These are all the most imbued, that everything's coming to fruition the most within that element. But again, it's numbers. They're playing with numbers. And it's the meaning, the archetypal meaning of those numbers generates the zodiac. Same thing. Yeah.
And then the numbers seem to exist before anything concrete seems to exist. It's like the numbers exist first in this idea of this perfect world of ideas, of forms. And then it's only when the planets, basically the 2 circles and then the one that's subdivided into 7 parts, it's only when they're created and that motion begins that actually time begins. So these numbers are actually they come before time, if there's such a thing.
Well, they kind of come with time, I would say. Maybe the concept of the numbers does, but you can't, because time, when you say time, what you're really saying is division. So those numbers are dividing, so it kind of happens as soon as it comes past or through that crystalline sphere. I'd say that's when the numbers are happening. It's difficult, Melissa.
Is it division or is it ratio? Because I also was going to mention, it seems that the numbers came first, right? And I am not the maths person, so bear with me. But is then time division or does it introduce ratio? If we're looking at the music of the spheres and if that's coming through the planets, then are we looking at division of that?
So there seems to be something of an argument there. Some people go, no number. Some people go, no ratio. Now, I see number purported by magicians and such, people encoding things. You see numbers. But then when you look at it a little layer deeper, it seems like they're almost always saying the ratio. I was looking at the tables of John Dee in the Monas Hieroglyphica, his most famous work. People find it very difficult to dig into that. It just so happened that the last time I read it, I was doing the work on the numbers. So then it made sense to me because that's what he's explaining. But after he's kind of occultedly explained the numbers, he shows the ratios at the end of the table, like the musical ratios. He calls them different things like supernal and celestial and things like that. But the musical ratios again. So
then is time just a song?
Oh my word.
You guys are like, why did we have her here?
No, I think
there seems to be a thing between dreaming and singing for the Aboriginals, and that's a very old slice of this worldview. They still have it, although obviously augmented over the millennia.
Yeah, I think that it's possible if we would view it more as, harmony, music, and all aspects of people creating harmony and music through our interactions and togetherness, the planets, the earth, nature, everything having this beautifully orchestrated element of music to it, the symphony of life. I really like the idea of looking at it this way, And
I think it is that way.
It
I
is.
go further. I think that's what it is.
It is that way, right?
Yeah.
So since we're talking about that, then you have the scale, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And then you have the eighth. So there's 7. And then you have the eighth, which is the octave. And you step from the octave. So that's another one where you've got 7 plus 1 equals 8, because it's really just a repetition of the first, taking you back. Not even taking you back, it's taking you up to the next octave. And so something that I'm seeing with the number 8 is, and 7, is like you almost have to journey through 1 through 7 to discover the 8th. And then once you find the 8th, if you can work with it, then you can proceed to the next cycle of movement. But if you're not able to discover that 8 on its side, infinity sign, then you're not able to like step up into a new space of, even if we're talking about development, and if you're looking at it, you know, like a spiral instead of just a line of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, then it's like you have to find a way to push through this other space so you can expand. And we see that with learning too. It's like we sometimes have to go through the same cycle of information over and over and over until something finally pushes us or cracks through, and we can say, okay, I can enter the octave and I can continue this in a whole other way with a new perspective. And so I see a lot of our development and how it aligns with these numbers to kind of represent that, us breaking thresholds. And sometimes there's points that kind of shock us into almost forcing ourselves to move past these spaces so that we can grow and develop. And that would relate more to like what Ryan was talking about with the law of 3. You have active, passive, and a reconciling force as well. And those forces are kind of like shock points. And that's very Gurdjieffian. And I did want to bring up Gurdjieff if you guys are open to it. And I can illustrate with this ray of creation, kind of like how he sees it. And if you're not familiar with Gurdjieff, it can be really hard to to get into him because he's so much about. I think you might have to do it, Melissa, to put that up on there.
Oh yeah, I'll do that now. Here we go. So this is his diagram that you've shared. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is Gurdjieff's diagram of the ray of creation. And he's a really funny character. He's a person who has been seen as a tormentor. He's very well studied, and he had his own school called Fourth Way. And so he taught from this ray of creation, and he didn't always explain things in a way that made sense. It was more about you discovering the meaning of what he's trying to share with you for yourself, like something similar to maybe like Tao or Buddha, you know, like Buddhism, and that like your teachers kind of have to put you through it so you can experience it. And that in itself, that kind of like torturous form of learning, is kind of forcing you into that space of a shock point so that you have to be like, I'm so frustrated. What does this mean? He's been asking me to think about this one thing for 6 months. My whole life is destroyed. I don't know what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden you have the epiphany and you understand. And I always recommend reading Boyhood with Gurdjieff. It's about a boy who ended up in his school and was like Gurdjieff's like basically butler for most of his childhood. And it's very interesting. It's like around when he started writing Beelzebub's tales to his grandson. Anyways, this is Gurdjieff's ray of creation, and it's an aspect of some of his teachings. And what it represents is through the scale, through the octave, which you see on the right-hand side. It says do, si, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, but it's the same concept. And then the numbers in the middle here are kind of how he represents the laws of each of these spaces. So before I explain what the laws might mean, I'll hop over to the left-hand side where it says absolute at 1. So the absolute would be like, the all, everything. And so it's got one law. So there's not many restrictions there in the absolute. And then you go down to all worlds, where there are 3 laws that all worlds must live under. And then you go to all suns, where there are 6 laws. So it's getting a little more like there's more structure, there's more things you kind of have to abide by. And then the sun has 12 laws. Then you go to all planets with 24 laws. Then Earth, where we live, has 48 laws. So we have a lot of laws that we have to live under on planet Earth. And then you have the moon actually underneath the Earth with 96 laws. And then on that octave of the absolute, you see the arrow, taking you back to the beginning again. So I'm not going to get too much into the laws here. It's super interesting, but the idea is that we as humans can overcome some of these laws through our more enlightened behaviors and through not behaving in automatic ways. So most people walk around and they're kind of automatons. They have routine, they have their structure, they have their, I'm going to do this like that, comfort. So it's about breaking out of that and becoming very present and not having automatic responses, being an observer of yourself and your reality, and then using your will and making decisions based on uniquely your, the way that you choose to behave through your awareness. So this is really funny, and I really want to mention it because you guys will get a kick out of it if you don't know already. When we continue to behave in automatic ways, we feed the moon energetically in Gurdjieff's theory. And so as we feed the moon, what we're doing is we're, in a way, the moon is new. It's not fully fleshed out yet. So as we feed it, it develops more and more and more. And eventually the earth could die and then the moon takes over. So it's like this idea that we feed it all of our anger and stress and anxieties, and we give all our power to the moon, and we're just, so this whole concept is very Gurdjieffian because you're like, what? That is insane. How does that make any sense? Is that rooted in science and fact? But I love the idea of the concept and the visual and how you can kind of internalize it as a concept and think about what it can mean for us as people and our behavior. And it's kind of like a curious thing that piques interest.
It's almost like a return to animalism, isn't it? Essentially, it's just allowing that subconsciously want this, so I'll allow it to rule me, I'll allow it to make decisions for me, I'll keep feeding it until that monster grows bigger and, eventually it becomes Godzilla and wrecks Tokyo.
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost like an archetypal thing, right? It's like he accessed this like archetypal concept and then he put it in this really bizarre structure.
Right. Do you think he means it? He is meaning it as a myth, isn't he? Rather than as an archetypal myth, rather than we're feeding the moon.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm a person that thinks that Gurdjieff is a satirist, and he was super duper into Greek studies and Greek mythology, and I definitely think he was a satirist. I don't know if I have proofs on that, but he, I think he just liked to observe the way that people would receive the information and what they would do with it, and like if they could learn the lesson from it on their own, because he didn't really tell people what to do or how to see things as much, and you can usually learn a lot from reading like Ouspensky, In Search of the Miraculous. He goes into this a lot more. Gurdjieff himself, I don't think really wrote about this super specifically or in depth. I could be mistaken because I haven't read everything, but in Search of the Miraculous, he goes crazy deep into like, oh my gosh, so much into molecules of energy and psychic energy and all kinds of stuff, because Ouspensky was a longtime student of Gurdjieff, so he wrote about his time with him. So we see the law of 7 there, and I just wanted to bring that up as another example. That's Gurdjieff's ray of creation.
Can I relate something to that quite quickly?
Yes.
Tarot, the Chariot, the 7th card, is you'll see it's often a knight in a kind of a cubic seat that's also a chariot pulled by 2 horses or two sphinxes often. That's a deeper, there you go. Or 4 sphinxes on Crawley's there. So that you get your lion, your bull, your eagle, and your man thing hidden within all this stuff too. But we're not going to that. What I want to say is that, he's carrying the Holy Grail as well in that center, which is over the area I call the chalice in my martial art, but that's the lower dantian, or the Svadhisthana chakra, or the sacral plexus. That's what he's carrying. Anyway, so what the idea of this card is that it actually comes from Plato. Originally, there were 2 horses pulling that chariot, and that's kind of your left and your right brain. You should I, shouldn't I, the duality. And you've got to get these horses to run together to pull this chariot. Slightly expanded with the Sphinx that Crowley just showed, which is 4 directions of the zodiac, and you've got to get the 4 things of you, fire, water, air, and earth, and the 4 parts of your makeup to come together. To get beyond that first set of 7 notes in that first octave, he puts on his spiritual armor, gets in his chariot, and you'll notice it's cubic, which is an earth thing. So he's kind of like pulling everything together that he's got to break through that boundary of the 7 to get to that 8th and to start the next octave. And you'll also notice on Crowley's card, if you can look at this, do you know what the plow looks like? It's like 3 stars, then 4. If you look on his chest, there are 2 plows. There's actually the Ursa Major and Ursa Minor overlaid on top of each other on his chest. So those are the ones with the 8th star missing. You know, the ones that are said there's 7 stars, but sometimes there's an 8th. And so there you go. He's kind of got the 2 lots of the 7 together and he's going to the 8th. I think that's great. It also says abracadabra in the canopy over the top. Have you noticed that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right up.
Which
there.
is so I speak, shall it be done kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's the magical, come on, let's do this. That's what it's saying. Or as they would say in what was it, Deadpool, let's fucking go.
I love that you mentioned that, because Gurdjieff actually has this teaching also about, it's kind of a visual that you can use. And I'm not going to remember it in full detail now, but it does remind me of the chariot card always, because it's about a driver on, a chariot basically, and there's horses, and it has to do with, managing your emotions, so that the horse can go where it needs to go.
Yeah.
Without it being controlled by the emotional force. And
without
this is
feeding that moon. Yeah.
And this is the Cancer card too.
It is the Cancer card, exactly. And you are using it for energy rather than using it to eat yourself, which is what Cancer does.
Right.
The best change I made to that card on my version is putting Hannibal Smith from the A-Team as the driver of the chariot, because he loves it when a plan comes together. He's got a cigar in his mouth and everything. Wow. I thought that was great. Yeah.
Wow. So that deck, you're pretty close on that, huh?
That deck? Oh no, that deck's done. That deck's been done. Yeah. I'm waiting till the book comes out, until I finish the books before I try again. I tried to get it done on Kickstarter, but it failed miserably. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So I need to try again.
To get back to these numbers here on the screen.
So what are you doing tonight?
Where does 7 fit in on this? Because we've got 1. I presume you can't multiply the absolute, so you have to subdivide it into 3. Then you got this process of doubling. But where does 7 come in?
Right. So 7 is going to be on the octave. So that's where we're seeing 7 represented is on the octaves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the absolute on the bottom is that eighth. And you see how it repeats the absolute, but it's the octave going into the change, right? So you can see there's the scale and then there's the octave. So we've got 7 plus 1 again, where do repeats itself. And octave is obviously why it's named octave, is because there's 8, even though there's only 7 of the original notes before it hits the octave that changes it to procession.
So it's more that the order is important in that case rather than the value, because that would go back to what we were saying earlier, what you were saying about having to get through the stages. Then it's not about ratio and it's not about quantity, it's about an order, and you have to get through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you were saying until you break through beyond 7 to 8, and then maybe beyond 8 to 9, and etc. etc. So it's the ordering that's most important. So you have if you're going from the top, do, si, la, so, fa, etc. etc. Would that be right? That it's the order that's the one that contains the 7, and that will be the most important, and that would then connect back to Plato in a sense, and also to John Dee, because he's inspired by Plato to say that the most important is the ordering principle, and he calls it numbering, which I really like.
Yeah, the ordering principle, exactly.
Yeah.
It's self-ordering. That's what's great about it, and it's just it's just literally quantity and qualities and quantities, isn't it? So you got to be careful though, because then people start thinking hierarchy, and it is a hierarchy, but then you start imprinting this thing on everything, and it gets dangerous because other forms of hierarchy exist. Matrilineal, patrilineal kind of idea, if you get me. Not lineal, but patriarchy, matriarchy. Those are two different methods, and matriarchy tends to be more of a web with a center, whereas patriarchy is kind of lots of towers, as it were. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. And to speak on that, because it really resonate with that, I'm so not the high vibes person. I'm about expansion. And if we look at this again, bringing the 7s back to the planets and time and that structure, it's not about going higher. It's about a working mechanism, and that 8th is this other sphere. Right. And I don't understand Timaeus as well, because I haven't gone super deep into it yet. But I did think of something really cool that I wanted to share with you guys if you're open to it.
No.
It's more in my wheelhouse.
Go on.
So
Go on, Sean.
Okay, so I was going to talk about the 7 chakras. I know there's more than 7, but when we think of the chakra system, we think about the main 7. So you've got the crown, the third eye, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. Thank you, Ryan. You are the best. And the butthole. So
you can't forget your bumhole chakra.
They're the same thing. The root is the same thing. So there's 7. But in energy medicine, specifically taught by Donna Eden, and it could exist in other, I'm sure it does. We look at the number 8 turned on its side, it looks like an infinity symbol. And in energy medicine, one of the ways that we fortify our field, our electromagnetic field, or our body's atmosphere or energy around us, is by doing figure 8 movements. And with the hands, you can do figure 8 movements. You can do a figure 8 movement over your third eye, and it really relaxes your nervous system. You can try this anytime your eyes are tired. So there's this idea of something called the Celtic weave, and it's almost like the A sphere, because it's out here in your field, and it kind of helps to hold a strong boundary for your bubble. So this figure 8 is everywhere. The Celtic weave, it's interwoven through the fiber, if there is such a thing, of your energy. So we're working with that a lot, and you can sense it when you practice this and tune into it. You can start to pick up on places where, oh, I feel like I need to do a little stitching here. And so you do the figure eight movement with the magnetism of your hand, but you've got the 7 chakras here. And then they kind of do represent some type of really distinct structure, or I wouldn't say time element, but they're like the hard drives.
Yeah.
Our body's energy system. They hold information and they're very like structural. The chakras are. And so you've got this other sphere that's like kind of it moves, it shifts, it kind of changes. And it reminded me like, oh, well, this is like that 7 + 1 again.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, you have the different correspondences between the various chakras and the 7 colors of the rainbow, if it's 7. So it all seems
I
to
really
tie
like
in.
that. By the way, you just that went, all right, yeah, that's really good. I really like that.
Love
Because
it.
it's always as above, so below. And any
Yeah.
description they're doing up there is really primarily description down here in this. You know, it's a further way of occultism, really. Of course, they saw it as being fractal. Maybe we see it as being fractal, who knows? But yeah, that's brilliant. Because that field, I'd have to think on this further before I say something silly. But yes, I really like that, Sean. I think that's going to stay with me for a couple of days.
Good, yeah.
Mhm.
Also, there's like our body has these natural kind of like crossover patterns too. So sometimes you might even find that things are flowing like this from the right to the left, the masculine, the feminine, and balancing. Even when I do a session with my tuning forks, I close the session off by doing figure eights, starting from the solar plexus point above the belly button and kind of like cocooning the entire body in one giant figure eight. So these figure eights are found everywhere, but they don't relate not in the body, the form, they're on the outside, like an eighth sphere.
I've been using this so much this week. My whole week, like, is in the last 7 days, in a martial perspective, in what I practice, including when I damaged myself a week before, actually. I've been figure eighting. I've been literally exploring the power that you can generate by making figure eights. And I looked into Tai Chi. I looked into all the martial arts to see how they're doing it, because I discovered something by moving my own body. And it is a figure eight movement. In Tai Chi, it's all hips. So you kind of, moving your hips around your spine, and it's that figure eight energy, and then you can generate kind of power from it, if you get me. And when boxers do a punch, when good boxers do a punch, they'll move the hips. They'll twitch the hips like that. And then you can kind of send it up your spine, and it'll go forward. Figure eights are like one of the most powerful movements that you can make. Full stop.
Yeah. Belly dance.
Slingshot around the sun.
Yeah.
Slingshot around the sun. They went back in time in Star Trek to go and save the whales by doing that figure eight slingshot.
Ow, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called
The
now.
voyage home.
No, there's another word. For the, yeah, I mean, it's not Mobius strip. There's another word for
Mobius
the
loop
movement of I can't remember it now. Teddy Bass talks about it in one of his songs too. But yeah, like belly dancing and building that sexual energy. You use that figure eight pattern, right, to charge that energy up. Like,
well, you can use it during as well. That figure eight pattern. Everybody likes that figure eight pattern.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that energy is like what I see as like, that's obviously the creative life force energy. That's the energy that possibly the entire universe is made of. And we're able to, through that figure eight movement, create more of it or access more of it. We're probably not creating it as much as we're accessing it through that movement and really getting into our bodies. And that's all in that root system of the body too, for grounding. So yeah, we can get really groovy.
Good. I can start doing that Zodiac song again.
Oh, please do.
Both like, yes, I'm like, no.
That was my favorite thing. If you guys did not see Ryan Seven sing a Zodiac song, you need to go back on Mercurial Pathways and you need to find the last interview Melissa did with Ryan Seven and watch it. So it was fabulous.
A highlight. We should probably do a show out of it. Actually.
We should clip it for a reel.
So, here it is now. You
Love
get to
it.
see it.
Yeah. So you got
old
this
Sagittarius.
the sense of swinging your hips and this practice and the gathering of the energy, and then it's all linking up to the figure of 8. So how does that then link up to the actual number 8? Do you think is it particularly like the number 8, or is it just a coincidence that we have this motion?
The number 8 is probably that shape because of the lemniscate of the sun. It's literally that infinity sign that the sun makes over the year. It loops. It's got like a smaller bit at the bottom, and then loops over like that. So it's kind of an inverted version of that.
Analema.
Sorry?
Analema.
Analema, yeah. Lemniscate, same thing. So depending on how you see the tarot, whether you see it wrong or right. Actually, this is funny because you'll see two versions of the tarot. I think it's in France where they swap. It starts in France where they swap Leo for Libra. They swap the Strength card for Justice. Now that's because when that lemniscate crosses over, that's where it happens between those two signs. So as it goes around, it loops back again. But I think that's an excuse. They've just put them in the wrong order. So when you rectify that order, Leo's number 8, the sun, that makes that lemniscate pattern. And Justice is 11, halfway through the tarot sequence. So, and it's in the correct sequence of the zodiac, yeah. So it just makes me happier. However, it is 8 has in the actual number itself, the character of the number itself has a looping about it. You can 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, you know, you can that sequence of 2s within those first 9 digits kind of, it's so difficult to show you without showing you the patterns of the numbers. Well, just take my word for it, everybody. You look into my work somewhere, or you can take the 10 times table, give the 10 times table a digital root, and look at the patterns between them, and you'll see what I mean. But 8 has a looping quality. 8 has a quality where it wants to reset back to number 2, is what happens.
And 7, 8, 9.
It's true. Since I was a kid at school, that's been true.
Yes.
Well, since we're talking about this, let's illustrate, Melissa, your question a little bit more through the tarot, and Ryan, you can help me out with this.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me, oh shoot, do I have, okay, so I've got my cards backwards here, but. So first of all, we're going to look at the Fool. I'm using Crowley's deck here, Book of Thoth. So this is the Fool. It represents 0. It's pure potential. It's like the void. And so we're not quite looking at any of the numbers here. We're just seeing it more as a space that things can come from or step into. Ryan, would you like to elaborate on that at all?
No, that's great. So you got to think in 9 numbers time, we'll be on number 10, and 10 has a 0 next to it, and it's kind of a resetting of that system to start the numbers again. Number 10, 0 has the same kind of concept. Before, think about the mind of the universe. Now, before there's anything able to be thought of in that mind, you need a mind in the first place. You need to be able to have these conceptions. So this is almost like the concept of number and not number. It's like, oh, we could have numbers, almost numbers generated by having a thought. But it's an area in which to operate. Now, because of what I've just said, suddenly, as soon as you get 0, you're getting 1. Because there's 1 0. Because there's a something. This isn't a nothing. I used the analogy before of is it like a blind man that can, you know, when you close your eyes, you can see black? Or is it like somebody that's not got any optical capability at all and they don't see anything? You imagine black, but they ain't seeing anything, baby. So this is kind of that same concept. This is the blackness behind your eyes rather than not seeing anything.
Yeah, and if we're looking at the 0, okay, so let's envision a circle. And at the top of the circle is the number 10. And then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Ah, that's
10. So the 10 is represented by the 0 and the completion of the cycle 10. And it's like a portal space. So we've got that there. And then 1 here is represented by the magus. This is going to be more like when will is put into the void, and maybe the will is, in Ryan's analogy, that you open your eyes.
It's attention. It's literally attention, that card. If you were to take anything from it at all, think of, there's a famous medieval image of a magician stood at a table playing the shell game or something like that. And there's a pickpocket behind him who's bent over. So we have a magician, we have the audience. A member of the audience is having his pocket picked because he's paying attention to the magician who's playing with attention. So this whole card, because you can see that there's a subject object thing going on between the number 1 and number 2. So this is the subject. What's the subject? Well, it's me. It's the I. And I am attention. Wherever I am is where my attention is. And this card is attention.
And to piggyback on what you just said, Ryan, your attention is one of the most powerful things that you can give.
Well, you pay attention. You pay. It's a transaction, attention.
Literally.
You pay attention. Yeah. You give your attention.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. So put your attention into something that's going to have the results that you want. You know, that's what will is about. It's about that attention, like you're saying. Yeah. And so from 1, we go to polarity, the first act of polarity. This is the High Priestess card. So duality is in the High Priestess card here. You can see her just beyond the veil, Isis behind the veil here. So the 1 becomes the 2. Do you have anything you want to add to this?
Well, that 2 essentially is fertility. It's perhaps intention or the object of your intention. As we've had subject, now we get object. And she is, you could almost say she's like names, because it's realization of things behind the veil. It's like what's, you know, they often say about a thing, when you know its true name, you really know a thing. And that is, she's basically like, here we go. Here's another thing that these first 3 cards are. Because the magician's number 1 and every number's made up of number 1, but isn't that number, you can see it as he's progressing up and up through the numbers. Well, he's like an index, and that's grammar. We have grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Grammar is all the things that you need to know in order to then go through the stage of logic, which she is, comparing one thing to another, one object to another. In duality, is it or isn't it? That's what logic is. That's all it is. Is it, isn't it? Yes, no. And then we can move on to the third thing, which is rhetoric, which is the fruits of your labor, which is the pregnant nice lady that's got all the things around it, the empress, the queen mother, the one that delivers the fruits.
Yes, and she represents manifestation also. So from these more etheric, hard to pinpoint energies, then you finally come down into more of an earthly realm with kind of like this great mother energy of manifestation. So
hence Venus, hence the associations with Venus as well, that Venus is that life force, the feminine part of it, and some masculine, embodied into the earth. Well, that's Venus, that's Mother Earth, isn't it? And that great mother, rather than being ethereal in her greatness, she's just almost mother.
Yeah, formation.
Yeah.
So then from formation, we have to have something to hold all of this in place. And now that we're entering the earthly realm, we come into the number 4, which has to do more with structure. So we get structure in the emperor here. And these are going to be more of the those great physical type of masculine, feminine energies, the receptive form and the very active form. You can see how active this energy is of the 4 to create structure. And
dominion, a place, a real place in which to. He's almost a reflection of that 0 again as well. When I think about it, that he's giving, he's like the lion marking out his territory, keeping everybody safe within that territory, and making the laws. The emperor, one of the main things that he would do, and this was true of all kings, and it's true of governments now, they set the standards of weight and measure, or standards in general. They're the one. The regulations, the regis, the regent, the regulus, the king, and all these are harking back to Leo as well, because he's the sign of kingliness. I know we're still kind of in Aries here, but nonetheless.
What is his leg formation again?
I think that is because he is Cepheus, which is a circumpolar constellation. And I think when they put the legs together like that, it's suggesting the North Pole. I think there's lots of arguments, but
okay, there's another one. I can't place it right now.
Well, you could see it as the same as standard. The upwards leg is spiritual, and the horizontal leg is like this plane, the earth, the horizon.
Okay. Yeah, there's either an alchemical symbol or a planetary symbol.
Yeah, that is there as well. He's forming the symbol for sulfur. If you put all that together, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, which is the fiery aspect in alchemy.
And he's really staunch. He's really trying to hold that space of structure. And this is something that we can experience in our lives as well, when we get the great inspiration and we use our will to try and bring it into form. We birth new creation through manifestation. We find a way to really structure it in our lives or structure it in our learning. And then from there would come the 5, which is the Hierophant in the tarot. But it can also represent a sort of, and Ryan has a lot to say on the Hierophant as well, and it may differ from me, but it kind of has like a disruptive energy to this kind of, we're holding structure now, but it also can have to do with beliefs. So it could be new beliefs coming in and disrupting former form and things like that. What would you say, Ryan?
Yeah, he is. We've had that first 4, the numbers, and then we're still, and there's an evenness there, 2 and 2. Now we've got 5. Now 5 is something to do with the human body. We can even see there's a little child encompassed within that 5 in the center, and that's because golden ratio is derived from 5. There's lots of golden ratio within that pentagram. So he understands these structures. He's outside, he's removed from that first 4 somewhat. And because we're an odd number, everything's boxed in. So we've got like a subset of that 7 going on, the first subset, really. So he's somewhat outside that box. He can see what's going on. He knows the doctrine. He actually knew Johnny, who wrote it 100 years ago, that doctrine, and he remembers that. He's not telling you that he knew Johnny wrote it and it wasn't from God. So now he can get you to do things that you might not want to do. He basically knows the things already. He's been around the block. Now he can use that for good or for bad. There you go. And because there's a subset to this, which is he understands everything below him. It's as simple as.
Yeah. And also the star represents the human body as well. And in energy medicine and Chinese medicine, you can view the star as either the human body or the 5 energy types or elements in Chinese medicine.
They have, so I have something quick to say there. We have 5, but we have ether. They have 5, but what it is airs divided up. Because there's jewel anyway, they've got a jewel of jewels, so they have wood and metal. Yeah. In alchemy, they'd have like dry and cold, or dry and warm, or humid and cold. So we have similar things over here, but that's just third division, just to clarify.
Exactly. Good point. So you can see how in life, if we're looking at this through human experience, which is what this 1 through 10 is, it's kind of an example of how we all go through this 1 through 10 circle of experience in different ways. And it is always like this. You probably could think of yourself either now or a time in the past when you've been in any of these places in your life. So, and maybe think of a time where you felt like you had structure and you had dominion over that structure, and then you learned something new, or you were told something new, or you felt something new, and it became very disruptive. And all of a sudden, you had to kind of make a choice about how you were going to move forward. Do you want to remain in that dominion energy where you refuse all new insights, or do you want to learn to make a choice? And for me, the Lover's card has to do with when we make a choice, right, Ryan?
That was a great segue. I loved it. That was fantastic.
Thank you. So this is the 6, number 6. Anything you'd like to say?
Do I have anything to say about it? This is a Gemini card. Me being a Gemini, I relate to this a lot. Yes, I almost called this the Pathfinder, because it is literally about finding that path. You'll see there's an alchemical balance going on in this particular card, but in some of the medieval cards, it looks like there's a hag lady and a beautiful lady, and that this young man's got to choose between them. But it's not that. It's the young lady and the young man are together. They're just meeting, and this old hag lady is essentially the Hierophant, and she's initiating them into the mysteries. And the thing about the mysteries is that it's sex. It's this coming together of two bodies to start this ritualistic dance. You start it as, at 12, 13, something like that, don't you? That you're going, ooh, those icky boys that were horrible a minute ago, I'm suddenly, I've got different feelings about them now. And then they become interested again. And then you start this courtship ritual, which is this alchemizing of the masculine and feminine coming together and using the individual characteristics to make the next thing, which will be a baby at some point. Even in the mysteries, there's something of a child. In Taoism, they're literally making a child in the belly with this life force, with this masculine and feminine life force that they put together in that sacral plexus. You see manifested physically. This is interesting. I've seen it a couple of times now. There's a little bump under your navel and they can get it to move around. Yeah. And it's not, you can touch it and it's like, that's not muscle or anything. It's just this weird bump that you can tell comes from much deeper down, and they can move it. Yeah, go on. Yeah. You'll hear that again, believe me. It's not just me that's saying that.
Yeah, link, please. And Jenna.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. I will. I'll send you a link.
Okay, so naturally we're at the 6. We are making a choice. And once we make that choice, the next natural thing for us to do is to take a direction, any direction. And this is the number 7 now. So this is the Chariot, which we discussed a bit ago. And yes, we're taking on a new direction, but it also has to do with how we are going to be taking on that new direction. Are we in a place of automation where we are taking the direction of other energies or people around us? Or are we consciously taking direction through our own will? Have we taken this 1 through 7 to really connect with our true will so that we know when we move in that direction, we will have some kind of a result that will benefit us? Do you have anything else you want to say about the Chariot or what I said, if you agree or disagree?
Perfect. Yeah. There are many times in my life where I have had this card pop into my head, and this as a good philosophical, well, like his armor, a good thing to put on to be able to get through to that next octave. When you need to do something that's hard, that's the spiritual armor. He's putting it on. It's the armor of the crab. It's that hard shell that protects the soft insides. You know, the world is dangerous and good. Because if there wasn't danger, there'd be nothing to achieve, you know. So I love that idea of putting on this golden spiritual armor that you've forged yourself, and it could be the armor of faith. That would be kind of a fool's armor, however, you know. I'm pretty sure I won't fall off this cliff when I put my foot over. You might, but you need to mitigate this as much as possible. And I think that some of those deeper ideas hidden in this card of getting all your, because really this card is this card and all the cards that came before it to make him up, those 7 notes that are already there. So he's got to get his friends, these parts of himself, he's got to get those friends together to get into some kind of team so that they can harness those 4 animals at the front and then go in the same direction, because they could go in 4 directions because they are the 4 directions.
Yes.
But also the 4 axioms of witches, that to know, to will, to dare, to forgot the next one. What is it? To know, to will, to dare, to keep secret.
Wow, I didn't know that. That was very beautifully said, Ryan. And it's so amazing because from here you're stepping into the 8th note, right? Into the octave. So if your direction is true, if your aim is true, then as we discussed earlier, you're stepping into the energy of the adjustment card, right?
Not by my reckoning, no. I think we're going 8 would be Leo.
You prefer...
I prefer the actual order. Yeah, it just, for the numbers and for everything else, it just makes so much sense. This is one time that the French and Aleister Crowley did too much meddling, I'm afraid. And I think what he's doing is look, you can swap. I think he knows damn well that it's 11 and 8 the other way around. That 8 is Leo and 11 is Libra. It's correct in the sequence. You know, Libra doesn't come before Virgo, comes after. Virgo's the 9th card. So the reason they did it is because that lemniscate thing. Now, that's Crowley's reasoning. I don't know why they did it in the original. That mistake or that swap first happens in the French cards. So I don't know if they're doing it because of the French or because there is really a valid reason. But that isn't always the case. That is a thing that changes later on, like in 1700, late 16, early 1700s, something like that. So 11. Well, she's very 11ness. There's a balance there, and there's 11 is 1 and 1, which is 2. So she's related to the high priestess, which, you know, it makes more sense. And just the fact that, you know, the previous card in the zodiacal sequence, it was 6 Gemini, and then as we move on, we've got Cancer in the Chariot, and then what's after Cancer? It's Leo. So that's where I am with that.
Oh, where did it go? I was looking for. But in the Strength card, there literally is an analema above her head while she's holding the lion's mouth open.
Yeah, so that's after the swap went on in the French. So I think a lot of tarot makers have been aware of this. And look, those 2 numbers are somewhat similar. I wouldn't go into it now. We can talk about it some other time because it's a bit dry. But there is something of a similarity to the way that. Well, do you remember before that I kept saying 8 wants to reset to 2? Well, that is 2. That's 1 and 1, 2. Yeah, it wants to reset to that. So there are a few shared things. And the fact that 8 is a balancing number. It's a balancing keep going round number with movement. I'd say she's got a similar concept. So I can understand why these things are done. I just don't think that is actually the case.
Well, if we are looking at this as an 8 for adjustment and balance and a type of completion, we would go on then, right? So that's 8. that would be our 7 plus 1. That's 8. But just real quickly, I just want to say that 9 and 10 are in this system. They're still there because they have to do with refinement in tarot. So like if we were going to look at that, then you've got the Hermit for refinement, and then you've got the Fortune card for completion of that cycle, before you would then either go back to the energy of the Fool. If you didn't, figure it out, then you're returning back in the same plane. Or if you, like me, want to continue spiraling upward, then you would move on to a greater refinement of yourself through the next cycle of the trump cards, which would be 11 through 21. Am I right about that? So then you would move on to the Lust card and go through that procession. And these cards have a different type of depth, rather than the 1 through 10 kind of being more about the very personal development. Then we get into more of like, oh, we lost Melissa.
That's all right.
We get more into a whole other level of development. And the only way to boost through here is through those shock points and learning those lessons to spiral upwards. So we're taking our circle and we're flipping it, and we're going to see it as a spiral that's expanding and moving. So this would be like the next octave, for instance.
On that point, I realized that myself and made my Wheel of Fortune have a spiral going deeper and deeper into the image. Yeah, I absolutely agree with the spiraling.
That's why I'm your number one fan.
It becomes very apparent very quickly that when you do complete that first 10, because so everybody, there are several of these choke points or kind of stages going on. So you've got those first 4 cards, they're kind of a little set. Then you can add the 5th one, that's kind of a little set. Then you can go to the 7. There's a real set there in the 7. But then there's another set in those 10. And then there aren't many sets thereafter. But you could also see that there's 3 lots of 7, which gets you to 21, plus the Fool. So, yeah, perfect. I particularly, because look, tarot, they're archetypes. There's lots of understandings to be had. Some people don't even really learn them and just start guesstimating what's coming through. Maybe they're connecting to something out there, or maybe they're not, and just a bit rubbish. But the way that you talk about tarot is exactly the way I feel about tarot, with a few little, that 11-8 swap, for example. But the way you actually think about tarot is completely the way I think about it.
Wow. I learned so much every time you talk about tarot with me too. I'm just like, I've never thought of it that way. But we are both on this this idea that it is to help us to grow and develop through these archetypes. And there's definitely alignment with the octave also in that 1 through 7 and the 8, like it clearly is in there. And so there's, again, the Kabbalah, like we could talk about this all day. I know we're going to be ending soon, but there's just so much of this repeating through history. And I think it's worth picking the thing that really resonates and looking into it and just seeing what you can use for yourself, because all these systems, they really are informed by one another. It's about finding what you resonate with so that you can find your entry point. Otherwise, if you force yourself to like, oh, but everybody does the Kabbalah, so I'm going to do the Kabbalah, well, see you in 40 years, because you need to find the entry point that resonates with you, really resonates with you. If it's Kabbalah, great, but I digress.
Yeah.
When you have the numbers and the sequence like that, that's amazing to see that sequence with those images. Can you kind of take a step back and think this is something that's been imposed on maybe the stars, because you were talking about the correspondences to the different zodiac signs, or to the planets? It's basically, would you say, a human construct that's based on these significant numbers, and then some things are included in the construct or the grid, if you like, and some things aren't? because you could say, why did they not include in this, for example, in the system of the 7 planets, why did they not include those other 2 planets, which are Uranus and Pluto? Am I got that right? Yeah.
It would be Uranus and Neptune, but yeah, well, they couldn't
Neptune.
see it.
I knew there was something. Exactly, Neptune. And they're definitely important. You know, they're definitely in the myths, especially in the Greek creation myths. So not everything.
Because they weren't planets, though. They're just, we've put those names when we discovered the planets. So they couldn't see Uranus and Neptune. They could only see as far as Saturn. So they could only see 7 wandering bodies up there.
Well, there's another argument for saying that 7 plus 2 in the ancient Indian tradition as well, because they have the idea of the 7 planets. So Surya, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, and then they have these 2 lunar nodes, which aren't actually planets at all. They're just points in the sky that are about the eclipses. So Rahu and Ketu, and they're just points. But it's again this idea that you could maybe add 7 plus 2, or you could have those extra 2 planets. So again, you have like the things that fit and the things that are added on, and it's all part of this structure. So how do you make sense of that?
I think what it's going back to, I don't think it's added on, because every time I see the plus something, it's doing something. So for example, in the tarot, that +1 of the Fool augments lots of the other sets of cards. We've briefly talked about it before, but the structures of the other cards in the tarot, not the major arcana. When you add 1, take 1 off, add 4, it works out beautifully. You just need that wild card. Plus, there's a great philosophy to having that wild card. And don't forget, naught isn't a number. Again, it's not a number yet. It's almost an intuitive thing that you do need this extra one, because it pops up in so many places. It's a fudge. It's something of a medieval fudge, but it's also a great insight as well.
So how can you make sense of this? Okay, so that you got these numbers, you got this order, and you got the human experience. Is what I'm trying to get at. That you're trying to get through these different
layers. Yeah.
Yes,
stages,
layers, portals, exactly. So how can you make sense of it and then talk about then something that exists in the sky at any given time, all like already? Like, how can you, like, they're already there, so you don't have that sense of becoming.
I think, is it just chance? I don't know. I'm pretty sure. Did ancient man discover number or astronomy first? I tend to think number. But were they small numbers? Was it a case of, is in many parts of Africa now, where it's just like 1, 2, 3, many? That's the numbers system.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Do you know that? There's a lot of places where it is that.
Yeah.
There's no counting really goes on. It's 1, 2, 3, or maybe 1, 2, many.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you have the different shapes that you were showing on the different cards, then. So some of them, there's an obvious connection. So you have the pentagon and the pentagram with them 5, but some of them there isn't an obvious connection, like the circle, for example. So how do you relate geometry to all these numbers then, and to these experiences?
I don't quite understand the question, but I think Shannon's gonna.
Yeah, that's just what I was thinking when Shan, you were showing all your cards. Like every card has a shape associated with it. So for example, you were saying about the pentagon is representing the human body, and it kind of makes sense. We have 5 appendages, you know, the arms and the legs and everything. You can do a little dance again, Ryan. But yeah, the number 5. But some of them are less obvious, and so basically I'm trying to say is this geometry that goes together with these cards. Is it just something for us to focus on, for something to meditate on, or is there some additional meaning in these shapes in the particular order?
They construct the universe. Like the golden ratio available in the pentagram, that is the basis of all growth in life, apart from Euler's number, which is something slightly more ephemeral. But in the body, you know, it's 5 in our body because of the golden ratio. These are all, everything's got in golden ratio to itself, or near enough. We're not perfect.
Near enough. Yeah. So it's like,
we're not perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, like you might have a wonky finger because, you know, a dog bit the end off it when you were 3 or something. You know what I mean? So, however, each of those numbers and the resulting geometry is the number. So it's absolutely got to do with each card. A point. Well, we said number one, the magician was attention. Well, what's a point? It's attention. That's what a point is. Punk, like that. A punct, circumpunct. It's the dot in the middle. It's the thing itself. It's that ever elusive center to things.
In the sun symbol, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're never going to drill down to that center, but you know it's there. You can keep going and going and going and going. Maybe there's a flaw to the universe, Planck's constant or something like that, but Planck level, which the Planck constant is denoted by the symbol of Saturn, which is the limiting factor of materialism. So it's a fantastically chosen symbol. Mm-hmm. 2 is a line. It's 2 ends. We got something of dimension here now. You know, we got here and there, but it's a line. 3 is a triangle. 4, you'll see the Emperor sat on a square. You know, it wasn't in mind for all tarotists to draw out the geometry in every card, but the reason that number works in the way it does is as much based on its geometry as it is the makeup of the character of the number in its relation to the rest. You know, how does 3 behave? How does 4 behave?
These are, like you said, Melissa, these are things that we initially meditate on so that the cards or the symbols can reveal themselves or present themselves so that you can see the underlying pattern in reality. So they both exist simultaneously.
Can I add to that as well? Now imagine, everybody, you're a medieval peasant. It was originally a game for the royals. You know, it was a gift between the Visconti and Sforza families, and we get that first deck. But pretty quickly, everyone's got a deck of tarot because the printing press is coming around, and the woodblock printing and such. No, you might have a tarot deck, but you've probably not got anything else. And that tarot deck was probably really quite expensive, considering that the printing press is this new thing. Paper's a relatively new thing. You don't have anything else. There's no, you know, you're not just flicking through your phone or anything or buying a newspaper. There's no such thing. Mm-hmm. So you've got this very compressed, consolidated set of symbols in these things that you will meditate over. Just like you did with alchemical diagrams, you'd sit there, I don't understand this. And then you think and you think and you think and you compare and you contrast, and they are symbols of meditation. And you absolutely, when you first start learning tarot, you pick up that card and you stare at it until you get it, or your brain falls out, one of the two. Both. You go a little bit mad first with these things because you get caught up in the woo and you get caught up in it all, and then suddenly you pop out on the other end, thankfully. And it's always a learning process. I still pick up alchemical images and go, what? But this isn't the same as the other ones. You know, I get tarot, and alchemy is a sister system, and they're very similar, but it's. I don't think you'll ever get that. Not really. I think I have with tarot. There's not much I don't get by tarot, but that's fixed somewhat. Tarot, you know, same expressions of the same thing. Alchemy goes too far. You go too far, alchemy.
It's another way for magicians to code information so that humans can play with that information. And I think that there was a lot more of humans understanding the magic of the universe long ago, and it kind of became oppressed and denied, and that a lot of the information was kind of passed down to us in other ways so that we could learn to access it. So I'm grateful that they put all that energy into making our brains fall out. But this is our history. This is our human history, and a lot of our human experience can be encoded through the messages of the images if we just sit with it long enough and really think about it. So I don't know. Anyways, not that this is meant to be all about tarot. I just thought it'd be a fun way to represent that.
It's a really good way to see it, because you've literally got those 4 things from the quadrivium that we've been talking about. So you talked about the music and the octave and the astronomy, so the correspondences to the various planets and constellations. You've got the numbers, whether it's quantities or the structure of number or the order, and then you've got the geometry. But then on top of that, what's really interesting is you've been talking about experiences, whether it's your head when you're studying the cards, or whether it's, you're talking about the chakras and that sense of energy, which is also, I guess, about experience. So then you've got these extra 2 layers. That's bringing up to 6. But it's really nice to see them all working together. That's what I find really interesting, that there are these correspondences for each step. And they all work together.
Yes. The link between the numbers and the energy system baffled me for a long time. And look, it's music here and that, and I'm sure there's a little connection that we're all still missing as well between the energy and the music. But if energy is frequency, essentially that's how energy comes in frequencies, then the same as music. So I'm sure there's something going on here. But when you look in these energy arts, like I was looking up, how does this other school, this other chi school, chi meaning energy, it actually means air, but it means like breath, it means like pneuma in the Greek. How are they sealing it in? Because I'm feeling that after I do a session, the energy is like there, but it's kind of vaguely there and moves around a bit. It's like I want it to concentrate at that sacral plexus, and you do it through your hands. You kind of suck it in through 2 points on your feet and exit it through 2 points on your hands. In other places too, but those are the main points. I think Jesus's nail wounds.
Stigmata, yes.
The stigmata, yeah. So it's a case of I looked it up at this other school, and they're like, well, for men you do it one way, for women you do it another way, and it's just the direction you do it in. And for men, on that sacral plexus or just under your belly button, you do that in an expanding arc 36 times, and then you do it the other way in a decreasing spiral 24 times. I'm like, it's these same numbers again. Tai Chi, how many movements in the form? 108. Oh, okay. It's these same, whether they knew what they're just, if they know what they're doing and the links between the energy and these numbers, or whether they're just carrying on that old system, I don't know. But there's, wherever you go with the energy stuff, you'll find the same numbers, the same harmonic numbers.
And ultimately that dualism, right? Because you've got the number 2, you've got that sense of going in and back out. No, I'm doing the wrong action. Out and back in.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean? You've got it's that Platonic Pythagorean lambda, where one goes up in doubling 2, 4, 6, 8, and then there's the tripling 3, 6, 9, and it's the same. I know that's the root of these harmonics as well. So
yeah, that's why I think the 7 is so interesting, because it doesn't actually fit in that.
It doesn't fit.
But it's just so fundamental.
Because it's a set. You've got a natural set because it doesn't fit. And that's what I love about it. It's like it's showing you. And there's, as well as that 5, there is a 7ness in the proportions of the body. Vitruvian Man will show you that. And that is made with that pattern. And a few other bits, but the main bulk of that, the Vitruvius is made with that ancient pattern, which is based on 7. 7 doubled to be 14. It's a 14-sided shape because 7's not even. You can't have the same above as you could below because that pattern isn't even. If you 14 it up, suddenly we doubled. Evenness, geometry, beautiful.
Oh, that's the geometry. Yes, exactly. Shan, would you have a favorite number among all those?
My favorite numbers are 3, 6, and 9, to be honest with you.
Great.
I like 11's my number. I just happen to be called Ryan 7 from a previous life.
Now you're Ryan 11. There we are. We heard it here first. Ryan 11.
Yeah.
Well, it comes from that 11:11 phenomena. Have you heard about that when people see 11:11 all the time on the clock? But from when I was about 14, so pre-internet or anything like that, I remember doing sit-ups and stuff, and it was always 11:11. And then in life, it was whenever it was 11:11, it was like, oh wait, I'll look around, what's going on? Oh wait a minute. It was like some kind of a gateway sort of thing for me. Look, if it's all mystical woo, that's fine too, because thinking like that can take you places as long as you are somewhat rational about it and don't let yourself get carried away.
Yeah, but it's all about the experience as well. As you said, like you spot 11s or you spot 7s or the 369, then it has an experience, like it has an emotional.
Well, it says, wake up, have a look around. So then instantly my consciousness has gone from that lunar level that Shan was talking about before, feeding the moon. I'm feeding that moon. He's like, oh, more, I want, whatever it'll be. But now I'm going, whoa, wake up. Oh, look around, become more like the daylight.
Yeah. I just love that too as a term, and I really wish it would catch on and people would be like, you're feeding the moon, and people would just know what you're talking about. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to do a meme.
Yeah, right. We need to make a meme for it.
You'd need to make a series of 7 memes for them to be able to understand that moon.
Yeah, exactly.
369 of them. Yeah,
well, I think that is one of the reasons why a lot of this stuff is secret as well, because a lot of people can't be asked. You can't be bothered to learn it because it is complex, and you need. One of my favorite things about tarot cards is that it left brains and right brains you. You got all those symbols. You've got all those symbols that are working on your right brain, but there's a fundamental logic that works on your left brain, and they are magic. I love them.
It's also oppressive for people to keep them from enlightenment, because with that enlightenment, you're more powerful or dangerous to systems of control. So we're not supposed to. Otherwise, I feel like we would have now I know we have an abundance, but I feel like a lot of the information isn't accessible in a way that people can really connect to. It's usually other people telling you how to think, or and I feel like part of our human experience is taking what we learn and then applying it to ourselves in a very unique and intimate way so we can connect with the information very specifically.
You must appreciate though, Shan, that we and the kind of people who are watching this are wizards and witches of mind. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? A wizard, a seer, somebody that, now I don't mean literally a magic practitioner, but somebody with that vision. Most people want to be told what to do. Most people want to, Jesus save me. They'll turn up to church because they want to be told things. They want to show. And look, that's great. You do your thing. I'll do mine. That's fine by me. But they want to be saved. We want to save ourselves. There's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful note for us to wind it down on. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Well, anyone, please watching, if you're enjoying this, please leave a comment, because we'd really like some comments.
Or questions, maybe for because we're all friends, and I'm sure me and Shan will be back on the channel. So if you have any questions to ask us, or any observations, or
if you liked Ryan's dance, how much did you love it? And do you want him to dance and sing more?
Do you want more clothes or less clothes next time?
There are some things that we can't talk about. It's a cult, literally. All right, listen, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Shan, and thanks, Ryan. And please have a look at Shan's channel and Ryan's channel. I'll leave all the links below and their works. Thanks,
Thank you, Melissa.